Welcome, Dr. Michael Brennan. He's the Branch Chief Hurricane Specialist Unit of the National Hurricane Center. Dr. Brennan, we are so excited to be working along with you in the National Hurricane Preparedness Week at EcoExploratorio, Museo de Ciencias de Puerto Rico. We would like to know more about who is a hurricane specialist, what kind of job does he or she does, and what is the benefit to our society of having a hurricane specialist at the National Hurricane Center?
Well, sure. Yeah. In the Hurricane Specialist Unit that I supervise, we have 10 forecasters. And so half of the season, basically starting May 15th when the East Pacific hurricane season starts, all the way through the end of November when the Atlantic and East Pacific seasons end. Our forecasters are working rotating shifts, keeping an eye on the tropics, looking for tropical cyclone development, and then issuing the forecast and watches and warnings and all the information about the wind and storm surge and rainfall hazards for those storms. And then in the off season, when we're not working shifts, we're involved in going back and analyzing all the storms from the previous years. We do a tremendous amount of training and outreach, scientific research, work on improving the models, work on improving our products. So it's really kind of a unique job. We're not doing forecasting all the time. We're doing it about half of the time. And then the other half of the time, we're just as busy doing the outreach and almost getting ready for the next season. And the real benefit of having that sort of specialized position like a hurricane specialist is, forecasting tropical storms and hurricanes is very different. It's a very specialized part of the field of meteorology. So it allows us to develop a lot of expertise in that part of the field and really helps us to produce a sort of world-class forecast and information for our customers.
And how did you get involved with tropical meteorology? Is that something that you always wanted to do, or was it part of the career path?
Yeah, I mean, I think like most people who go on to become meteorologists, we're all interested in it from a very early age. I grew up in Western Virginia, not exactly a hurricane-prone area, but I was interested in hurricanes. But my research and my interest in graduate school were more in mid-latitude weather. But when I finished my graduate work, I had the opportunity to come to the Hurricane Center and work as a postdoc and got more interested in the tropical side of the operations, and then ended up in the hurricane specialist position starting in 2008. So my career path has sort of taken me down a road I might not have expected to go down from the start.
So one thing is operational forecasting, and another thing is research to improve the forecast. How do you relate those areas of expertise that you have into this unit?
Well, they're really joined together. Research helps improve operations, and then the problems that we find, that's the struggles we have in our analysis and forecasting, help inform research about what the problems are that they need to go either investigate with observations or try to improve from a modeling perspective. And so they really work in tandem to try to make the forecast and products and all of that as best as we can. We're also more involved in research and things like the social sciences to try to communicate the weather and hazard information in ways that more people can more easily understand and take action on. So that's sort of a new thing we're doing. It's not just the physical science part. It's not just the meteorology. It's the messaging and the words and what do the products look like and how do you convey the message to get people to take action. So a lot of the folks in the Hurricane Specialist Unit at NHC have some research background either through graduate school or previous career opportunities. And we interface pretty easily with folks at the Hurricane Research Division, a part of NOAA here in Miami, in the academic research community, elsewhere within NOAA, and even internationally with scientists trying to improve the products and the models and just the basic understanding of the phenomena that we work with.
How do you verify the forecast? Because you went through a full hurricane season making forecasts, and now you have off season to evaluate what you did. Have you seen any improvements in track and intensity?
Well, for this past particular year, overall in the Atlantic Basin, the track forecasts were generally pretty good. We had two storms at very late in the season, however, Pablo and Sebastian, where there were some very, very large track errors, and they actually influenced the average track errors for the entire season and made them go up a fair bit. But for most of the other storms, even for things like Dorian, the track forecasts were quite good. The intensity forecast, over the past 10 years, we've actually seen some improvements in the intensity forecast. Really the first time ever, the errors have started to decrease at least a little bit, but we're still not where we need to be. We still have struggle with systems that strengthen very quickly. as we saw with Dorian last year, where we made some very, very large intensity forecast errors. And so we know that that's an area that we struggle with, and that's an area the research community and the operational community are working on to try to improve. But that verification and understanding how we do with our forecast and what the errors look like is part of what we do in the off season, where we go back and finalize the best track, the location, the intensity, and the size of each storm. And that's how that's what we compare our forecast against, is what the storm actually did.
How are you looking into improving the way that we're using models such as GFS, the European model, the ensemble models? Where do you think that there's going to be more opportunity for the future of the use of models to forecast?
Well, models are really a very key part of forecasting the track and the intensity and the size of storms. So we work with the modeling community directly. When we do our verification, we see how the models do in addition to the NHC forecast, and we provide that feedback to the modeling community. We work with the modeling community, especially here in the United States, the community that develops the HWRF model, the GFS. We evaluate the changes that they're proposing to make to the model each year, and we provide feedback on that, and we basically give them a thumbs up or a thumbs down if we think that that implementation should go forward or not. And so that's that sort of iterative process where the models are being upgraded and changed each year. We also have techniques where we combine or average or combine the best models together, and that usually gives us a better starting point for the forecast than trying to pick one model individually.
In the forecast process, there are some humbling experiences, right? Especially with those hurricanes that become catastrophic and that bring damages to communities. How do you feel when you have the challenge of forecasting and then looking at the damage, and you did the best you can to help these communities prepare? What goes in your emotional side of the forecasting?
Yeah, as you said, it's a very humbling experience. It's something that I think affects a lot of people in different ways, but I know it affects me very deeply when you know that you've done the best you can in terms of a forecast, in terms of providing warning and information to people, but yet you know that a storm is of such a catastrophic nature that there are going to be fatalities, there's going to be tremendous damage, there's going to be these generational changes to a community that happen after a storm like a Dorian, for example, or after Irma, or after other catastrophic events that really change communities for many, many years. So it just sort of reinforces our commitment to the effort to try and improve everything we do, all the way from the forecast to the messaging to the preparedness, so that people are ready the next time a storm threatens as we go into this upcoming hurricane season. But it's something you carry with you for a long time. I don't think you ever forget those moments and those times when it does make such a big difference. Now,
how are you handling the fact that now we have a COVID, the coronavirus threat, even into the operations of the unit? How will that be taken into account in order to make sure that we continue to receive the forecast as you are supposed to do?
Yeah, we started very early taking all the appropriate measures to keep our staff safe, to keep our facilities safe, to really just sort of protect the work that's going on with the operations in the building. We've been testing out our backup plans, even issuing some of our marine products from home and testing out different scenarios. So to make sure that we'll be there for everybody that needs us as we go through the hurricane season. It may be a challenging season for many people. The most important thing we can tell people is listen to your local officials, because the situation with COVID is going to evolve with time. It's going to be different from one location to another. So you're going to really have to listen to your local emergency and government officials through your local media to find out what you need to do when a storm threatens your area.
Climate change is also driving the hurricane seasons, and we're looking into catastrophic enormous hurricanes and moving more slowly, becoming more intense. So how do you think that we should be preparing for the challenges that the future presents in terms of the hurricane threat?
Well, the one thing we know from climate is that a warming climate does increase the amount of moisture that's available in the atmosphere, and we've seen some very significant flooding events over the last few years. The relationship between hurricane intensity and a warming climate is not as well defined. It might be small enough that it's very difficult for us to even measure. But the main message is the storms have the potential to be damaging and dangerous enough that no matter what the situation is with any type of warming, that people still need to be ready for that scenario to affect them, especially in the Caribbean, where you have situations that are storms that could affect you right there. So.
And that's something that really concerns us, because before the hurricane arrives in Puerto Rico and in the Eastern Caribbean, I mean, it goes through a huge amount of water space, and where observations are usually scarce. The hurricane reconnaissance aircraft does not come in until it arrives into longitude 55 degrees west, approximately. So how do you see that improving in the long term? Is there any way that we can start using more satellite instrumentation? What do you see the future in terms of forecasting and in hurricanes?
Well, yeah, we have to take advantage of the satellite and the remote sensing. There may be opportunities for unmanned aircraft that can have longer range or can spend more time in the storm, and take advantage of all the different observing opportunities that we have to get more data for storms where we don't have it right now. They're, like you said, beyond the range of aircraft, especially for storms approaching the Caribbean. Getting better observational data and better understanding how those storms are behaving helps improve the forecast as we go forward.
We really appreciate, Dr. Brennan, your time and for giving us this interview. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much. Have a great day.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.